people think that faith is, as you know, to believe in God. The point of this year is HaShem. With Hashem's help, we will try to explain what it truly means to have faith in Hashem through the words of the holy Kabbalists like the Arizal and the Rebbe, and to really have a new focus on what it means to believe in God and to channel this belief and raise ourselves level by level through this emunah, because we all know that just believing in God as an outside thing, it's kind of a weak thing. So people ask, what is true emunah? So today I'd like to spend some time based on the like I said, on the works of the famous Mukubalim of the Arizal and the Rebbe, who lived about 150 years ago. In Pirkei Avos, in Perek Dalit, Mishnah Dalit, the Tana says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika. Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika says, Kol mechal Shem Shamayim b'seiser, whoever is mechal Shem Shamayim b'seiser, hiddenly, nifroi mimenu bagoli. If somebody, God forbid, makes light of Shem Shamayim, meaning Hashem, hiddenly, he gets punished openly. Now, many times we know that the way a person acts, a Jew, every human being, but especially a Jew as a Torah, has to act in a certain proper way because he represents God. So if he acts in a way that doesn't represent God, he's desecrating the name of Shem Shamayim. Somebody does it hiddenly, in his own confinement, in his own house, in his own room, he still gets punished openly, which means people will eventually find out. Then he says, Echad shogeg v'echad mezid b'chil Hashem. And regarding this, that a person gets punished for being chas v'shalom, desecrating the name of God, somebody who does it b'shogeg, not on purpose, and somebody does it b'mezid on purpose, has the same thing when it comes to chil Hashem. Now, this Mishnah is very, very astonishing because, first of all, there's a few questions we have to understand. One of the questions is, Kol mechal Shem Shamayim b'seiser. First of all, what does it mean b'seiser? I'm sitting in my room, and what am I doing? What does it mean b'seiser? What does it mean when I'm alone, I'm desecrating the name of God? That can mean a million things. So what does it really mean? The second thing is, we know that in the whole Torah, the Torah says by many things, all the things that if somebody does something b'mezid, intentionally, if it has to do with something that he has to be killed, he's killed. But if he does it unintentionally, b'shogeg, then he has to go into exile, or he has to bring certain korbanot, sacrifices. So why, by this mitzvah, this isser, this lav, this din, don't be mechal, don't desecrate the name of God, is the shogeg, the unintentional, as literal, as harsh, we look at it as harsh as somebody does it intentional. I mean, it's not really so logical. Logic is that there should be a difference. So far we have the two questions: what does b'seiser mean, and why is there a difference? Why is there a difference in usual in the Torah? There's a difference between mezid and shogeg, that the punishments are equaled out according to the way the person does it. And here it doesn't make a difference. Either way, he gets paid back the same bad. We have to understand that. Another question I'd like to bring is something that the Baal Shem Tov said. The Baal Shem Tov one time said, the Toldus brings this down, this Talmud, the Toldus Yaakov Yosef brings down this Shiloh. He says, this saying, a very famous saying from Baal Shem Tov, and it means a lot of understanding. It's very, very vague. He says that Am Yisrael, the Jewish nation, didn't go out to Galus, to exile, until they were kaifer, they denied in God, and they were kaifer in David, HaMelech. So the question is very simple. The Rebbe in his Sefer, in Noitzi Chesed, he asks his kash, he says, what's special about David HaMelech? Why David HaMelech? Why not Moshe Rabbeinu? Why not Avram Avinu? And Baal Shem Tov didn't just say stam things, just out of the blue. The Baal Shem Tov said everything with careful thought. So Hashem, we know because he's the king. But why David HaMelech? And the fourth question we're going to ask is, it says in the Gemara, in Sanhedrin, now there's a lot to talk about this, maybe Hashem will give a share on this, if Hashem allows us, but the question is, it says in the Gemara that there's no difference between now, this world, and the next world, which is going to be after Mashiach, after Tchias HaMesim, besides one thing, that we're not going to be under the hardships of in exile, under the kingship of foreign kingdoms, and then oppressing, and like we, in Egypt, and the Holocaust, and Inquisition. We'll be ruling the, like it says, the Jewish nation will be ruling the world. The question is that really the only difference? It says explicitly, it says in the Psukim, which explains the world to come as much as we can understand, it says that the whole world is going to be full of knowledge of God. From my point of view, that's the biggest thing possible. That's the whole point. Why did Hashem create this world? God created this world that we should get to know Him. So why are you telling me that the only difference is this? It's a nice thing. We went through so much hardship, but this is the whole thing that we're working for. We're working for it to get to know God, that is the privilege. So why does the Gemara say just Malchus? Malchus, kingship. So just to repeat over the 4 questions, why? What does it mean somebody desecrates God's name? And Shamayim, meaning God, hiddenly, what type of case are we talking about? Why is this specific Avera, this sin, the same result happens when he does it intentionally or intentionally? We don't find it anywhere in the Torah, we always see a difference. The 3rd question, what did the Baal Shem Tov mean when he said that the Jews didn't go to exile until they were kofar on Hashem and David? Why David HaMelech? What's specifically special about David HaMelech? And the 4th question is, what we just said, that's the one difference, is that we're not going to be under the rule of non-Jews, we're going to torture us, of this and that, terrorists and all that. But we know that the whole point of this world is it's just a corridor, to, like the Mesilas Yesharim says, to get to the next world. The next world, like it says, is going to be, because the whole world is going to be full of knowledge of God. We're going to see God eye to eye, like it says. So why does the Gemara say that? Why is the Gemara, it seems like the Gemara is making the whole thing cheap. Chas v'shalom. The truth is like this. There's 2 ways to serve Hashem. There's 2 ways in our life now, our daily life, that we can serve Hashem. One way to serve Hashem and get close to Him is by learning Torah, learning the Torah that Hashem gave us, which we used to get close to Him, and by prayer of the mouth. When somebody's learning Torah and praying, that's how he gets close to Hashem, and it's a pleasure, because we know that learning Torah and davening to Hashem is tanug, it's the utmost pleasure there is in this world. So that's one way. One way of serving Hashem and getting close to Him is through pleasure. That pleasure is Torah and Tefillah. Learning Torah and praying. The second way is more of a harsh way. And the second way, actually, we find in many places that it's even a higher way of getting close to Hashem. The second way is, we know that a person goes through in this life many, many difficult obstacles and a lot of darkness. It may be money. Why do I say money? Because that was the first curse. When Adam Rishon and Adam did the chait, the sin of he ate from the tree of knowledge, the Eitz Hadas, Hashem said the curse is you're going to have to sweat and toil and work. So many people have a lot of problems, tsaris, a lot of tsaris with working. They lose money, they don't have jobs, up and down. People don't have children, people's mental cases and psychiatric issues there's enough to talk about, unfortunately. The way to get close to Hashem is this second avodah, is that when you go through this darkness, and you go through such a deep and difficult obstacle, and you feel there's no way out, that's when you cling on to Hashem, because you know that's the only thing that can save you. The only thing, and the only one, in reality, is Hashem, because Hashem put you in it, and He knows the way to pull you out. This way is a harder way. It's not through the pleasure, it's through the pain that we find Hashem, through the pain that we go through. Now, the first way of finding Hashem, which is through kindness, which is through pleasure, we know it comes from the midah of chesed. Chesed, there's a sphira, and the sphira is the way, we know spheres are, is the way that Hashem runs this world through certain sphirot. One is through gvura, and through chesed. That's not Hashem, God forbid, but Hashem ki'ilu, the way that we see it, that's how He runs the world. So the first way is through Yud Kei Vav Kei, which we know the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei represents the Shem of chesed, of kindness. So when a person is learning Torah and he feels dveikus and he feels attachment to Hashem that way, that's through kindness. That's through where it's easygoing and he feels great. The second way is it comes through the bechina of gvura. Gvura is really the bechina of malchus, because what's a king? A king is somebody who's strong. So malchus is really gvura. And what happens is when a person is going through obstacles here, it's malchus, it's strong. It comes from the word, we know, Aleph Daled Nun Yud. Hashem, but with Aleph Daled Nun Yud. What does Aleph Daled Nun Yud mean? It comes from the root, the root word is din. What do we know by a king? The din is malchus dina. The rule of the land is the rule. So we know that when a person goes through hardship, which is din, judgment, then we know that it's coming from the name of Aleph Dal Nun Yud. Obviously, we know that Hashem, it's all one, but the way we see it is that Hashem, like I said, the Sfirot are separate. And Hashem, He's not separate, He's one. but it's only, that's one of the paradoxes. How does it happen? So that, because God is out of the system, He can do what He wants. Now, so the first way is through kindness, and the second way is, how do you go through the second way? That going through the darkness, you sweeten the darkness by holding on to HaShem, and eventually you find the light. So the first way is the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. The second way is Aleph Dal Nun Yud, but when you bring the sweetness to the judgment, you bring the two names together, and what happens is the harshness, the judgment gets sweetened by the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Those are the two ways, the two basic ways. That's the ups and downs of a person. When he's up, he's in this way, and when he's down, he has to find a way to attach the bad and the good together, and to find HaShem and cling on to Him. Now, what's interesting is that according to what we just said now, we could say in answer to one of the questions, this is not the answer that I want to teach for today, but I'd just like to say a little bit. We see that the answer is, when it says Malchus, it says, we asked, the last question was that the Gemara says in Sanhedrin that the only difference that's going to be between the next world and this world is under the hardship. We're not going to be under the kingship of the rest of the world. According to what we're saying now, Malchus doesn't mean the kingship of the rest of the world. Malchus is going on the Gevurah, that we'll see in the next world how there's not going to be any judgment. It's only going to be chesed. So that's how a lot of Mukubal want to answer, that the Gemara is really saying not that we're not going to be under the kingship of the non-Jews. That represents all the judgments and the hardships that Am Yisrael went through, and the next generation we're just going to be under the kingship of HaShem, of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Because the name Aleph Dal Nun Yud is going to grow right into Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's going to be a sweetening when Mashiach comes, and it's only going to be good. That's one way you can answer the last question, but that's just a side note. What's interesting is, the first way is much easier way. When somebody's feeling all good in life, and things are going the way, he's having great shalom bayis, his kids are treating him with respect, and his money's flowing in, and everything. So it's not such a high level that the person is serving HaShem with love and fear and all that, because he's getting an abundance. The trick to really serving HaShem and to show that you're really there for the long run is when it's difficult. And there, HaShem, why are you doing this? What are you doing this to me? Why? And to flip around the darkness, the choshech, and turn it into light. That is the job of what tzaddikim do. A true tzaddik is somebody that now he's sitting there in true lights all day, and all day he's sitting there in the spa, in the jacuzzi, ki chas v'shalom ki'ilu, and everything is good, and he's smoking a Cuban cigar. No. The tzaddik goes through the pain and suffering more than anybody else. But what he does is he takes the pain and suffering and turns it into sweetness by attaching to HaShem. That is the job of a tzaddik. What's interesting is that in the Hakdomo of the Zohar HaKadosh, the famous Zohar from Rebbe Shem Tov, it says that after Rebbe Shem Tov was nifter, he passed on to the next world. His student Rebbe Chia wanted to come visit. Rebbe Chia was still living, but we know that tzaddikim were able, even today, there's certain only very few special, but in those days, all the time, they were able to revive the dead. But they were also able to go up to the next world through Aliyat Neshama. Their soul would leave them, and they were able to go back up to the next world and then come back down. He wanted to go and visit his Rebbe in the next world. You know, take a nice trip, take a little vacation. So he goes up to the next world, and as he goes up, he's trying to get into the next world, and he hears a baskol. And the baskol says out, he hears a voice from Shemayim that screams out, the only people that can get into where Rashbi is, or where his heichel, where his kingdom is only somebody that's able to turn the darkness into light. What do we see from here? We see that that's the job of a tzaddik. That's the true avodah. The true avodah of a yid is to sweeten it, to take the name of Aleph Dal Nun Yud, which is Malchus, which is Din, and switch it into the what? The sweetness of Chesed, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei. And that's the real people who serve HaShem that's how they serve HaShem. What's interesting is, there's many people that they say, I know, you know, you ask a guy how's life is going, sugar, it's beautiful, everything's sweet. If a guy says that he's not going through anything or sweet, that just means he's in big trouble. He has big problems. That means a person who most of the time doesn't have any darkness in his life, that means because he's not really serving HaShem. Why? Because somebody who's trying to delve and get close to HaShem and try to find the secret to the Torah, he has to go through a lot of darkness. Why does Hashem put him to this darkness? What do you mean? I want to get close to you, Hashem. Why are you throwing me away? Because Hashem is testing his will. Hashem is testing to see, really, do you really want this? Or it's because you have nothing better to do, or it's nice, or because you're doing it for gaiva, for holiness, or for honor. Is it that you really want it in the inside? How do we have to see? We'll check you. What's interesting is, one of the ways that it says that when somebody wants to convert to Judaism, they test them very much. So people think it's because they want to throw them away. No. The Torah says to love a ger. So how does that correspond one to the other? We know the answer is very simple. A person wants to convert. Some people want to convert because it's easy for them, it's nice, I don't know, whatever the reason is. We have to check, do you really want it? But when you do want it, then we accept you with loving arms. The same thing, Hashem's the same thing. Hashem said, if you really want it, then I'll accept you. But I don't know if you really want it until I test you. So that's why Hashem is the test. So a person, the second way, the higher level of serving Hashem is going through the darkness. And if you don't go through it, that means that you really didn't even start your Avodas Hashem. Because if you start your Avodas Hashem, then all of a sudden you'd be getting beaten and beaten. It's like we know, like I keep on saying always, when a person goes to Ummah, and every time they come back, everybody says they keep on getting another box in the head. Rebbe Nachman's destroying them. People are like, why? Rebbe Nachman, I thought the opposite, you help us. He is. He's helping you by getting smacked around. That's how you start getting higher and higher, because then Hashem starts embracing you more and more. So really, the first way is really those people that, I serve Hashem, it's nice, I learn Torah, it's pleasure and tefillah. But those people are not really trying to delve into the Torah. They're not trying to find the secrets of the Torah and really come close to Hashem, attach themselves to Hashem. Because if they did, then they'd go through all the darkness. And they would have to go through, like what we said, Rav Chia, in order for him to get into where Rashbi is, they would have to go through what Rashbi went through. What Rav Shimon Bar Yochai go through when he wanted to reveal the secrets of the Torah? He had to be chased into a cave for 13 years. It says his skin was ripped up, that tears fell in, he couldn't bear the pain. And it says that what they ate, the same thing. Imagine somebody eating now carrots, and drinking water for 13 years straight and nothing else. After a week, we get sick of steak. After a week, these people, him and his son Rebbe Lazar, but that's how they revealed. That's how he revealed. And one time gave a shir that in order to reveal the secrets, you have to go through darkness and go through exiles. And that's why we see all the tzaddikim. They always went through exiles, and the Gaon, the Baal Shem Tov, until they revealed themselves, because this is part of it. This corresponds to the two levels of pleasure level, which it's easy. Who doesn't want pleasure? The other one where there's no pleasure, that's where Hashem really. And then you come to the real pleasure. But before that, you have to go through many difficulties. Now, what's interesting is, there's a sefer we once spoke about from Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital, he wrote a sefer, it's from the Arizal, from the torah of his Rebbe the Arizal. It's called Oitzes HaChaim. In Sefer Oitzes HaChaim, the Arizal starts off, it's the Lashon of the Arizal. Reb Chaim Vital wrote down exactly what the Arizal said, word for word. The Arizal starts off like this. Hakdoma Achas, this is like the first sefer that people start learning Kabbalah. This is the first sefer to start because it has all the general rules of Kabbalah and explains all the sfirot and all the chain reaction of all the worlds. And it's very difficult, but after you learn it, then you really could start understanding other deeper works of Kabbalah. The first sentence of the Sefer Oitzes HaChaim, Reb Chaim Vital writes in the Arizal, Hakdoma Achas min ein sof ad zer ampin. What does that mean? It means the Arizal starts off like this. Before the creation, well, what was before the creation? There was nothing. What does that mean there was nothing? That means, the Arizal explains, and Kuvalim explain, there was a light that shot out. We don't know. We never talk about what God is, because that we'll never know. And that we'll never know because it's impossible. Even the light that protruded from the Ein Sof of Hashem, the Atzmus of Hashem, the Mohut, that itself also, we don't know what that means, because it's not a real light. And the Mekubalim use the word light because light, like we say, is always the cleanest and most pure thing. But obviously it's not a light that we could understand. Before that, this light that protruded from Hashem was a light that had no beginning and no end. It was everything and everywhere, and it was everything and nothing, because we don't know what it is. Now, what happens is, what's interesting, if you look until Ze'er Ampin, when Ze'er Ampin is, there's 10 sfirot. What's interesting is, it said that God created the world with 10 sayings, 10 words, 10 ma'amorot. The Mekubalim say that these 10 words, each one was connected, each of these words was connected to a different sfirot. The top sfirot are called the top 3, which is Gar, Gimel, Rishonis. Those 3 spheres we don't talk about. It's way beyond. That's Olam Haba. We're going to have such a chassidus in Hashem. That is Keter, which is the crown above the head. Then there's Chachma on the right side, which is, there's 2 lanes, Ki'ilu lanes, 2 different pathways in the brain. In the spiritual brain, we're talking, the right side is Chachma, which is the male, and the left side is Bina, which is the woman. Then after the Chochmah by the man is Chesed, kindness, and after Bina by the woman becomes Gvura, woman is strong. And then you have Chochmah Bina, you have Chesed Gvura, then you have Keser Chochmah Bina, Keser Chochmah Bina, Chesed Gvura, and then you have Yesod, and you have Hoid, and then you have Teferes. You have Teferes. Then you have Teferes after Chesed and Gvura. Teferes it's a mixture of both. We know Chesed represents Avram Avinu also, and Yitzchak was Gvura, and Yaakov was Teferes because he was a mixture. Teferes is beauty, because when the Chesed and the Gvura come together, it's a beautiful thing. Because that's the whole point of this world, is to bring the Choshech into the light, right? And then we have, after Teferes, we have Sod and Hod, and then we have Hod, and then we have also Yesod, and we have Malchus, and we have the 10 Sfirot. What's interesting is, in each of, when the Rebbe Nachman created 5 worlds. Adam HaKadmon, which is Ak, the highest world. The next world is Atzilus, and then Bria, Yetzira, and Asir, which is our world. In each of these 5 worlds, there's the Eser Sfirot, these 10 Sfirot. So when the Rizal says that the beginning of the world was first the Or Ein Sof, protruded out of God and went all the way down to Zer Ampin. What's Zer Ampin? Zer Ampin is the 6 Sfirot after this. We said this Keter Chochmah Bina. Then we have Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach. Netzach, Soid, and Hoid, and then Yesod and Malchus. Now, what's interesting is Zer Ampin it really means it's 6 of the Sfirot together. And what it says is that Hashem's light protruded out of him and went all the way down to till Zer Ampin. We don't say, and it didn't reach Malchus, and it was only in Olam Atzilus. After the other 3 worlds, the Mukabalim explained that this light that came into the worlds, it didn't actually go down past, it didn't even hit the Malchus, which is the last Sphira, in Atzilus, and for sure it didn't go down to the next 3 worlds. What happened was, so how do we live? Where do we have chiyus from? The light gives chiyus. It's like a shine that protrudes out of the light, just like the light protrudes out of the Atzvus Hashem. Then there's like a remnant of light that shines from the light itself, and that's what gives chiyus to the lower worlds. And if you look in the Arizal, most of the Arizal, and Eitz Chaim and everything, he talks only from the Or Ein Sof all the way down to Zer Ampin, which is all the way until Malchus of Atzilus. After that, he doesn't really speak about because that's not really what we talk about. He talks about it, but not as much. The bulk of it is the highest world, Adam HaKadmon. And then we talk about Atzilus, all the spheres in Atzilus. What's interesting is, Adam HaKadmon is the first world that came out of the Or, which protruded from the Atzis of Hashem. The world of Adam HaKadmon is so great and so big, and it's also completely godliness. Now, compared to the light that it comes from, it's a little less. But in the way we look at it, it's so high that we don't even talk about what it is. The only thing that Rizal starts talking about is what came out of Adam HaKadmon, Adam HaAk. Now, the Rizal, and this is what the Ramchal says also, Ramchal in his Sefer also writes this in his Sefer Kloli Chochmas Emes, which is one of his Sfarim. The Ramchal didn't just write there, HaShem Yisrael, he wrote 50 Sfarim, how many Sfarim. In Parak Tes he writes that over there. Now, why is this Ak, Adam HaAk, this first world Ak called Adam Kadmon, the first person? There was a tremendous Makobel named Rabbi Yitzchak Azik Chaver. He writes in his Sefer Pischei Sh'arim, Netiv Igulim. Igulim is because the way Hashem created the world was there were circles and circles. We're not going to get into that now. He says the reason why it's called Adam Kadmon is because the Adam HaKadmon, that world is our future reward, is our schar for all the toil that we put in. Ak is that highest level of Asag and Hashem. And why is it called Adam HaKadmon? Because it's the purpose, the first purpose for the reason for mankind. Why did Hashem create this world? To give us pleasure. Then where's the pleasure going to be from? From this world of Adam HaKadmon, which we don't even know what it is, because we only talk about what protruded out of Adam HaKadmon. Why is it called Adam HaKadmon? Because Adam means person, Kadmon the first. The first reason for people, why did Hashem create the world, is because of this reason, because of the pleasure that we're going to get out of the world of Adam HaKadmon. That's what Rebbe Nachman of Breslev says. What's interesting is, the Arizal writes, so this is how the Arizal starts his Sefer. Then the Arizal explains, so we just had that the Or Ein Sof was everywhere. We said it only went to Zer Ampin, and then afterwards I'm sorry, I apologize. I have to say one thing that I missed. The Or Ein Sof that came out of God, which we don't know what God is, and even the Or Ein Sof we said it's just something that we use for the word, even that, which is not even God, because it's completely not God, but it's something also that's so high, it was everywhere. there was no, it's built itachal, it's called Mkomo. That means there's no tachal, it doesn't have an end, it doesn't have a start, it was everywhere. There's no place, there's no time. And there was no room for Hashem to create the worlds. Starting from Ak and all these worlds. How can Hashem create a world of Ak and Yitzir and Bia, of Atzilus and Bria, Yitzir and Sia, and all these worlds, and the worlds we're in, if, like we know, if there's a cup somewhere, then if the cup is there, even though we're talking about something that's a physical thing, but just understand, then you can't put another thing in its place. You have to remove it. So how could, if everything was Hashem, if His light was everywhere, then how could you create worlds? What did He do? So it says, like this. This is what our Arizal says in the beginning of Mitzvah Chaim. Da, no. The whole Metzias, the whole reality of all the worlds, there was no worlds. There was only a complete light that protruded out of Hashem. V'nikra or Ein Sof, and it's called the light, the endless light. Now, why it's called Ein Sof is because it's a big question in Kabbalah, and there's many answers. Rebbe Nachman of Breslev one time wanted to say, why it's called Ein Sof? Because to know that whenever you're getting closer to Hashem, just know that there's no end. You have to keep on working. That's why I use the word Ein Sof, that it never ends. There's other deep in Kabbalah based on Rav Ashlag has, and a Sefer Shari Gan Eden, based on Gematrias, but that's a simple pshat, a nice pshat. Rebbe Nachman of Breslev was the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, and the uncle of Rebbe Nachman of Breslev. Now, so what does it say? There was no empty space in the world. It wasn't a world, but whatever it was before. There was no empty ear. Everything was this endless light that protruded out of God. So, right? How do all these worlds come about? So we're going to get into that, but let's focus on what we said till now. The Baal Shem Tov says from the Ramban, who people, if I don't know people know, the Ramban was from the biggest Mukabalim, from the first biggest Mukabalim. He wrote Svarim on tremendous Kabbalah, and even his Perish al Torah, you see, was tremendous Kabbalah in it. The Ramban says, Baal Shem Tov brings the Ramban, where is this Baal Shem Tov brought? There's a Siddur called a Barditchev Siddur, that it's Messiah from Lev Yitzchak Barditchev. Lev Yitzchak Barditchev brings down this Baal Shem Tov, B'Shem the Ramban. The Ramban says, everything we just spoke about, we know that Kabbalah is beautiful, it teaches everything, but we have to apply it to our Avodas Hashem, to us serving God. How does this apply to us serving God, that the first was endless light and all these things? We don't even understand these things. So how do I understand what's the point of it? Baal Shem Tov brings, because the Baal Shem Tov brought down Kabbalah to a level for every Jew to serve Hashem in that way. Now, where does this apply to us? So after Baal Shem Tov in the Barditchev Siddur B'Shem Ramban, every Jew in his serving God, the first level of serving God is, I have to understand that I have to believe in faith in God. And this is what we're going to get to, what I spoke about. What is faith in God? What does it mean, faith in God? Faith, the first level is that the God is endless. Endless. God is everywhere and it's endless. We have to think, itbonenut, which means to contemplate this. The Baal Tanya used to teach his students just to contemplate on God, looking at, thinking His name and thinking about His greatness. We know Rav Nachman added on even to talk about it, his Sweetening, but also to think about it. A person has to think and contemplate deeply about this, that what? That there's no existence and there's no place that's missing godliness. Because if there's place missing godliness, the place wouldn't exist. Because godliness is what keeps a place alive. It gives it its life. Like a body, the neshama gives the body sustenance, life. Hashem gives everything to everything. It's like Hashem is the neshama, ki'ilu. Of course Hashem's not the neshama, but it's like He's the source, He's the battery. Kaviyach, to understand. And that we understand because the first, before everything, Hashem was what? Hashem is not the Ein Sof, but the Ein Sof that protruded. It was everywhere. And you know what? Till today it's everywhere. Because from Hashem's point of view, He never changed. It's only from our point of view that there's worlds and all that, and Hashem hid His light. And that is one of the paradoxes that we know that we can't understand until the future world. But the fact is Hashem never changed and Hashem is everywhere. That is the first thing. And what does that teach us? Like Rav Nachman says, so that means wherever you are, no matter in the craziest and dirtiest of places, Hashem's there. Because if Hashem wasn't there, this dirty place wouldn't exist. So to scream, Rebbe Shalom, you're here with me. Reveal yourself. I need you. I'm so sad. Show me you're here with me. When I'm in the worst places, that's where Hashem is. As much as He is in the highest of places. Because Hashem, there's no difference in the R over here or there. It's one endless light. There's no up and down. There's no lower madriga. It's only in our eyes. But if we attach ourselves to Hashem, then who cares where I am? Hashem's here just as much as He is in Gan Eden. And I could change everything around in 1 second. The Arizal then explains, that's the first thing we have to understand. So first thing in Amunah, the first level of Amunah is that general idea that Hashem is everywhere, and wherever I am, because that was the Or Ein Sof before Hashem constricted his light, which we're going to get to now, and that light protrudes from Hashem, and that's the highest we can even speak about. And even that we don't really speak about, we just use it as light, and that we can attach on all the time, because Hashem, you're here, you're there, because you didn't change. That's why one of the tzaddikim always says, when we daven to Hashem, we shouldn't ask Hashem to change what He's doing to us, because Hashem never changes. We ask Hashem that we should change, because if Hashem is giving us problems in our life, it's because we have to change. Hashem never has to change. Hashem is perfectly righteous. Hashem is just doing according to what we do, because like we just said, Hashem is the complete order that never changes, it never changed, and never will change. I created worlds, how that works, that's a paradox, okay. That's not something we're going to answer, but from our point of view, Hashem, Ki'ilu, constricted his light, which we're going to speak about, but Hashem never changed, and that's the first level of Amunah. But that's not the highest level of Amunah, because that's a general, it's a nice level, it's a very good. The next level is like this. The Arizal says, so in order for Hashem, so we had the problem we just said. There was no place, there was no empty, hollow place, the Or was endless. And Hashem created all the worlds, the endless worlds, from Ak, Adam, Akadmoin, all the way down to where we are, Asiya of Gashmi. By the way, in Asiya, there's also a world of Asiya Ruchani that people don't talk about, but when we say Asiya, we mean the world of Asiya in Gashmius. But we usually, and even Adam Akadmoin, we don't say it as a world. It is a world, we usually just say Abiyah, which is Atzilus, Bri, Yitzir, Asiya. But in this case, when we're talking about there was no room for Ak either, because Ak was already something that came out of the light, but the light was everywhere, so where's the room? So the Arizal is Mechadish to us a tremendous thing, and it's based on the Zohar, and the Ramak talks about it, and all the Mekabbalim speak about it. The Arizal speaks about it the most in depth. The Arizal says, when the Rebbe Nachman wanted to create the world, he constricted his light inside himself. We don't know what that means, but it means that the light doubled back into its other light. Now, there's a lot to talk about it to explain it more, but it's a different shear, so I just want to stay with the simple. So just Hashem could do that. Hashem doubled his light back in. He created an empty space, which is called the Chola Panoi, which you know is empty space. And in that empty space, where the Or wasn't there anymore, Kaviyach, because we said only from our eyes it looks like there's no Or, Hashem never changes, and we don't know how that works. He could put all the worlds of Ak into our world. Why did Hashem do this? Hashem did this. Now, the Baal Tanya says this a lot. The Baal Tanya and all the Kabbalim say is for what? And the Arizal says, basically, but the Baal Tanya speaks about it in length, based on a Midrash Tanchuma. Why did Hashem do this in the first place? Why did He constrict His light? Why did He create all these worlds? So we should reveal what? His kingship, and reveal His light again. So the question is, how do I do that? Hashem constricted His light. So He's outside. So what we know that all the worlds are circles. So that every point of the circle should be exactly equal to where the Or of the Ein Sof is. Question is very simple. So if Hashem constricted His light, how do I bring this light back in? So the answer is, that's where Torah mitzvahs come in. Hashem created a way that's beyond our knowledge, that by learning His Torah and davening and doing mitzvahs, that's how, even though He constricted His light and it appears that there's no light, to the fact that somebody in this world could even deny God, God forbid, because Hashem hid Himself so much. How do we reveal Him again through the Torah mitzvahs? Every time we do Torah mitzvahs, we reveal His light more and more into the world. And that's why every Jew has a chassidus to do that, because when he reveals the light in the world, he's revealing it also for other people that now can also grab onto Amunah. Because automatically he's revealing it in the world, the whole world. What's interesting is, so that is the point of Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs is to reveal the original light that was before the constriction. And Rebbe Nachman says, who was one of the big Breslevers that you Mekubalim, and the Rizal says, but I remember he says that after Hashem hiding His light and we revealing it through the darkness, through Torah mitzvahs, and through clinging on to Him, like we spoke about before, we could reveal the light even more than it was before Hashem constricted, a higher level of the Or. Again, what does it mean a higher level? If the Or is one simple, again, we don't understand what that means, but it means a higher level to what we see. We always have to remember that what we see and what Hashem sees, the way Hashem is, it's not a contradiction, because Hashem's out of the system. The contradiction is only because Hashem created such a thing called a contradiction in this way. The Arizal explains then, the Arizal says, Arizal asks the question, before he explains, he says like this. The Arizal says, let's just say another point. So we said the Arizal said like this. before Hashem created the world, there was a light that protruded out of him. How that worked, we don't know. We're not going to discuss that. But the light protruded out of him was endless. Because then you could say, if that's endless, so how is there Hashem? We don't ask questions. We don't never talk about what Hashem is. We only talk about the Or. The fact that there was an Or in Sof, complete light that came out and protruded. Hashem wanted to create the worlds. Why do you want to create the worlds? So we should reveal his kingship, which is what we just said. How do we reveal his kingship? Through doing Torah mitzvahs. Also, you want to reveal his the 13 attributes of kindness. There's 13 attributes. That Hashem forgives us and he gives us pleasure. Hashem created this world to give us pleasure. How he gives his pleasure to us is through the attributes and through this 10th spirit that we spoke about. But why did Hashem create this world like we just said? But the question is, how did he create the world? So what he did was, when it came up, this will to create the world, what it means came up is a whole different speech. It's a deep, deep Kabbalistic concept. But he, like we said, he doubled his light back into, and he created an empty space. And all the worlds were there. Question is, but if all the worlds are here, and all the world now, and we said in the shape of a circle, so now all the Or Ein Sof is around the circle, endless, but in this circle there isn't. So how does the circle survive then? Because we know that the light has to give in. So the Rizal says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created from the Or Ein Sof a little pipe. It's called a tzinor, a pipe, or it's ruchnius, obviously, but it's like a little line that comes down and it lets an exact amount to give life to all these worlds, that it gives enough light to all these worlds that each, as the worlds, the higher worlds, they get more because they're higher up, close to the Or Ein Sof, and the lower, right, that means a sea and all that, is lower down, but it had to be a perfect amount, because if it was too much, then it would go all the way back. It would be mavata. It would come again part of the Or Ein Sof. So Hashem knew exact amount, because that's Hashem, and Hashem knows everything. And that Or Ein Sof, now the Or Ein Sof flows in through this channel, and it goes into the worlds exactly how Hashem splits it up. Again, Hashem never changed. It's only in our eyes. And that's called the kav, the line, which is like the channel, the pipeline that brings in the Or Ein Sof down in. What's interesting is, so we understand now that there's two ideas of, not two gods, God forbid, chas v'shalom, but there's two ki'ilu. Of course Hashem never changed, but in our eyes there's two parts of God. There's the light that surrounds the world till today, that he surrounds all the chalapani, the empty space, and then there's the light that comes in. Obviously it's the same light, and Hashem never changed, but just for us to understand. We just said there's two ways, right? What's the two ways that we could get close to Hashem? We said one way is, Muna, think Hashem is great because everything's going well. You don't think too much into it. That's a bechina of the Or that's around. It's a general, the Or Ein Sof, that Hashem was one, and he split, and then he was mitzamti, he constricted his light. A raya to this is, the Baal Tanya says, as it brings a Gemara, there's a famous Gemara that says that even when a Jewish ganef, a Jewish person who steals, when he's ready to dig under the tunnel to get into the house, before that he turns to Hashem, he says, help me Hashem. You see that he believes in the emunah of the outer light, but it's not enough, because it's a general thing. Because we see that even if you have emunah in the outer light, it can bring you to bad places. So what do you need? You have to have an emunah in the light that also comes down through the channels, that specific Or that Hashem also is not just surrounding the worlds. Hashem does everything. Everything is divinely exact. The account is exactly the way it is. The pre-tzaddik, Rav Tzaddik says, and many swear that this the ashkacha pratis, which each person, if he moves and this and that, it's all from above. Like we know, nobody can move his finger without Hashem saying, it's exactly to a hairbreadth for a person to reach his tikkun, to come to the ultimate purpose. I thought, why does it have to be a hairbreadth? Because how's Hashem kilu, kaviyachol, watch over this world and give chiyas this world? Through a hairbreadth, through the kav. So just like if where's hashkacha pratis from? The light that comes down through the kav. The kav is like a hairbreadth, so therefore hashkacha pratis is so exact, just like the light is so exact. That's what I want to say, Pshat, the Pri Tzadik. So what's the next darga? The next darga is that a person, not just that there's a munah, there's Hashem that surrounds all the world, there's a munah that Hashem exactly watches over and does exactly everything. Like the Baal Shem Tov says, when a leaf moves in Argentina, that leaf moved exactly because Hashem wanted that leaf to move for whatever reason. Baal Shem Tov one time went with his students in a place, and the huge wind came, and he said for a little ant that the sun was beating down on it, and it was really feeling bad and a lot of pain. A huge wind came. They thought it was for them, not for an ant. Hashem does everything. Now we have to bring this back to, again, to apply to us. There's two ways a person can serve HaShem, we said. There's one way is that he learns Torah and it was nice and it's all good, and that's the level of the makif, which is surrounding light. It's not so like then we say that a person goes through, what's hashgacha pratis? That even when you're going through darkness, you know that it's exactly from HaShem to hear His breath perfect, and you sweeten it through, holding on to HaShem, which is the bechina of the or, which is the light coming through the channel. There's even a deeper way of tying these two ways, and there's a deeper way. When a person is learning Torah, and he's learning, and he's davening, so when he's learning, he has a general thought in his mind that I'm learning. Why am I learning? Because it's Hashem's Torah, and Hashem commanded, and Hashem runs the world. That's a bechina of like the general light that surrounds the world. Then there's a bechina when a person's going in the street, or he's sitting on his couch, and this is where, what I wanted to say before, that a person, what happens? A person can what? What's the job of a person? Not just to learn. Many times, like it says in the Mishnah Berurah brings one of the jobs from the Shla is a person should think Yud Kei Vav Kei in his mind. What is that? That's a specific thing. It says when a person's going in the street, he should think about one thing, one Mishnah, one piece of Torah, always. Because that's not a bechina of the makif, that's a specific thing. You're constricting your mind. When you're learning, you're not constricting your mind to one thing. It's a general thing, which that's a bechina, that's an idea of the outer light. The inner light that comes down, which was after Hashem constricted, that's how we also have to serve Hashem, by constricting our mind to Yud Kei Vav Kei, like the Baal Shem Tov, like the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Shla, or thinking of one piece of Torah over and over. That is a higher level. The Maggid of Mezrich said that becoming attached to Hashem depends on the second thing, much more than the first. The general thing we said, because we show from Baal Tanya, somebody could steal and say, Hashem, help me steal, because the general thing is less. When you think and constrict your mind to just Hashem, to Yud Kei Vav Kei with the Nekudos, or this and that, or constrict your mind to just the Ahavas Hashem, or anything, to one thing, that is really what brings the person. That's the difference between tzaddikim and levels of the dveikus, how much they constrict their mind to Hashem. Because that's really the two levels of how Hashem created the world. There was first the Or Ein Sof, which is the bechina of now, the makif, which is that Or. And then there's the bechina of the Or that comes down through the channel, which in Hanami, it's not as strong as the Or from the outside, but it applies to us much more because it's specific. Like we said from Pri Tzaddik, that just like the channel is like a hairbreadth, it's like a hair, it's just a tiny little long thing, so to the tiny little pipe is like a tiny hair, and that's why we also have to know that Hashem is every single thing Hashem to the exact detail. And that's how I also have to serve Hashem. Serving Hashem, like we said, the first level, which is even when times are hard, because that's the point of hashgacha pratis, Hashem knows what He's doing, and also in how not just in my general idea of how I serve Hashem, also that I learn Torah, that's your general, also when I can constrict my mind, that's really how you get to dveikus. Now through this, through understanding what really Emunah is, because we see that Emunah is not just believing in Hashem, that's bechina of the makif, that's the outer Or. It's bechina of what? When it's dark. That's the bechina of the Or coming down into the world, that we shouldn't think for 1 second that Hashem is not giving us light, because if Hashem is not giving us light and He's just a bechina of around, then we wouldn't be here. And not just that Hashem is just giving light, He's exact detail, He's running, like we said, like a hair's breadth. Through this we could answer the questions. What's interesting is, we asked, what was so special that Baal Shem Tov uses the name David? Why David HaMelech? Through this, what we just said about the Or, we can explain this very well. David has 3 letters. Dalid, Vav, Dalid. What's Dalid, Vav, Dalid? Dalid, if you know, Dalid, person who's a Dal in the Pasuk, it means person who's poor, he's missing. He doesn't have something. Now, before Hashem created the world was a bechina of nothing, Dalid. It was empty of anything. Of course, it was full of the Or, but because we don't know what that means, we call it absolute nothingness. That's the word in English. It means complete nothingness because it was everything but nothing. That's the first letter of Dalid. What's the Vav? We know the Vav is the bechina of the pipe. What is a Vav? A Vav is written here, and then it has a piece coming down. Because it takes the energy, we said, what's the pipe? It takes from the absolute nothingness, which is the Or Ein Sof, and it brings it down into the worlds. What are our worlds? The last Dalit of David. Why is it the last world? Because what's Dalit also missing? Why is our worlds missing? Because also our worlds are missing compared to the original light. Because that's the whole point of our world, where it's hidden and we have to reveal it. So when the Baal Shem Tov said that when did they go into Galus? Because they denied God and David. Then, you know what I mean? David HaMelech. He meant the Bechina of David. He meant that he didn't just deny God, the general of God. He denied the God, which is the first Dalit, that. And he denied that the Ashkacha Pratis, which is the Sinor, the Vav coming in and giving the Shefa, and Hashem runs everything. Person says, I don't believe in divine, this, divine that. I run my life. Hashem doesn't care, even if he does exist. That is what it means. That's what the exact type of David is. David HaMelech doesn't mean David, because then what's the difference between Avram and David? David, the letters of David, Dalet of Dalet, represents the before the creation to the pipe that we said brings into Ak, which is all the worlds which are missing. Worlds are known Olam, because we said Olam is Lashon of Helam, which is missing because it's missing. It's the R is hidden, and we said that's the job of us to redefine that what everything is R by revealing the R. That answers the question of David. Then we said. Then when we asked the question, we said, what do you mean? So what about Malchus? What's going to be the only difference is Malchus? And that? But after Mashiach comes, the only thing is we're not going to be, according to this, we're saying not just like the first answer, I said in the beginning a little answer on Malchus because there's not going to be judgment and there's going to be, now we're saying no. Because what's Malchus? Malchus is judgment. But what is the judgment? The judgment is that we don't see Hashem. It's tough. We have to go through the Choshech, which he said is the higher level. And through going through the Choshech, we sweeten. But what does that mean, we sweeten? That means we reveal Hashem again. That means that in the next world, we're not going to have this, we're going to see Hashem eye to eye. We're going to see how Hashem does everything, and everything is divinely orchestrated. Everything is Hashem. Hashem does everything. There's nothing but Hashem. Now is our job to believe in that. But so really, that is, what does it mean to see God, to understand God? In the next world, we're going to stand, we're not going to have Malchus anymore. Malchus is what hides Hashem. It's judgment. It's going to be gone. So that answers the second question based on the same thing. But our job of tzaddikim is even to do that now. Because tzaddikim can get to such a place because they can taste of Olam Haba, because they find Hashem in everything. The other question was, it says, Amachal, somebody who desecrates the name of Hashem, right? B'seiser, he's all that. We said, first of all, what's the problem? Doing it hidden, who cares also? If other people don't hear. And what is hidden? Hamachal is not what we're saying means desecrating Hashem's name by doing something not good. It also means that, according to what we're saying now, Hamachal comes to the lashon of chol apanui. A person says that this world's empty, but it really stayed empty. That means he doesn't believe in Hashkach of Hashem anymore. What do you mean b'seiter? A person doesn't say this, he believes in that in his heart. Zok the Pirkei Avos, when a person's v'chal Hashem, machal doesn't mean desecrates. It means he still says that Hashem's not in this world, God forbid. That Hashem, when he actually hit his light, this world stayed without his light. But he doesn't believe in Hashkacha process of the Kav coming in. That is a bechina of Seiter, that he's kaifer in the whole thing of what? Divine orchestration. That Hashem orchestrates everything. Divine, like we said, like a hair's breadth. Why is Mezin and Shagig the same thing? Because what is Mezin and Shagig? Mezin is somebody we just said, so that makes sense. Why Shagig? Because Shagig is somebody who's a fool. But when it comes to a fool, if he doesn't believe in divine orchestration, right, that Hashem orchestrates everything, divine, perfect to perfection, then he's in the same boat. Because he also believes that the Chol HaPanui stay Chol HaPanui, and that Hashem, it's all us, and we do whatever we want. So what's the difference? It's for that, or you're a fool. But you're a kaifer, you're still denying, because you're denying in the main thing, which is the kav coming in and giving the Hashkacha Pratis. That answers all four questions. Through this shir, we really see what it means. We see that the levels, that everything ties in. There's always two things, and one's higher and one's level. We said the first thing is the chesed and the gvura. The chesed is where it's all nice. That's the bechina of the makif. That's the bechina of the ganef that he could do wrong. The vod of a tzaddik is defined in the darkness, which is what? That's the bechina of what? That's the bechina of when it's dark. And that's the bechina of the hashkacha pratis coming in. Because how do you beat the darkness? By attaching yourself to Hashem, saying, Hashem, you know best. And that in ourselves also is our avodah, that when we're learning Torah, we learn Torah, so we talk with our chavrusa, with our study partner. The higher level is when we constrict our thoughts and our mind, because that's connected, when Hashem constricted, and He brought only a little bit in, and we constrict, we only bring a little bit in. We don't talk about a huge thing, we think about one thing, Yud Ke Vav Ke. And that is true avodas Hashem, that's true emunah. When a person understands this, he understands that emunah is such a deep thing. It's not just I believe in God, because we just showed, if you believe in the God, but you don't believe in His divine this, you're already a kaifer and all that. It's about believing in the whole setup of the way Arizal. Through this, what did we do here? We took all the words of the Kabbalist, of the Kamarno, and the Arizal, to show how all their high levels of the creation before the Orient Sof, and then the constriction, all that, is really applies to our own service, like the Baal Shem Tov brings in the Ramban. And through this, Bezat Hashem, we should really understand and learn and beg Hashem to really come to the true avodah of Amunah and avodas Hashem. If you have the light of Hashem